Formation and early years of the Premier League, pre-1992 to 1993, you can trace the idea of football back for a very long time, a simple concept that has endured. It fundamentally involves a round ball, a pair of nets, and 22 players split between two teams competing on a single pitch. For over a century in England, the pinnacle of this structure was the First Division, established all the way back in 1888. This was the top of a pyramid, a system of first, second, third, and fourth divisions with even more leagues sprawling beneath them. It was a known, established order. But by the close of the 1991 season, that order was about to be completely rewritten. A new entity, the Premier League, was formed in 1992, an event credited to the vision of figures like Rick Parry and Sir John Quinton. The goal was to fundamentally enhance the English game, to make it more competitive on a global stage. This change did not happen in a vacuum. It was born from a period of profound crisis. The late 1980s marked a desperate low point for English football. The stadiums themselves were deteriorating, with poor, often unsafe facilities for the supporters who filled them. Hooliganism had become a pervasive issue, tarnishing the sport's reputation both at home and abroad. This culminated in the Heysel Stadium disaster in 1985, a tragedy that resulted in all English clubs receiving a 5-year ban from European competitions. The English game was isolated, its quality and appeal visibly lagging behind the glamour of Italy's Serie A and Spain's La Liga, which drew larger crowds and generated far greater revenues. Consequently, a generation of top English and British players sought success elsewhere. You saw Dennis Law, Kevin Keegan, Graham Souness, and later David Platt, Paul Ince, Gary Lineker, Les Ferdinand, and the prodigious Paul Gascoigne all move abroad. Then a shift began. In 1990, the 5-year European ban was finally lifted. That same summer, England's surprising run to the semi-finals of the FIFA World Cup reignited public passion for the national team and the sport itself. Back home, a new way of thinking was taking hold within the clubs. Key figures recognized that to compete, they needed more significant financial resources. They began to operate their clubs not just as sporting institutions, but as business ventures focused on maximizing revenue. This new commercial mindset was pioneered by men like Martin Edwards at Manchester United, Irving Scholar at Tottenham Hotspur, and David Dane at Arsenal. They understood that the future was tied to money, and increasingly, that money was tied to television. Television revenue quickly became the central battleground. The top clubs, feeling they were the primary draw, began to seek a larger share of the profits and greater overall power. They started to openly threaten a complete break away from the established football league. The importance of broadcast money had already become clear in 1988, when an ITV deal was struck for £44 million over 4 years. Crucially, the leading clubs negotiated to receive 75% of that revenue, creating a significant financial disparity within the league. This emboldened the so-called Big Five clubs: Manchester United, Liverpool, Tottenham Hotspur, Everton, and Arsenal. They met and discussed forming their own Super League, a seismic move that would shatter the existing structure. The Big Five soon realized, however, that a rebel league would lack legitimacy and value without the official backing of the Football Association, the FA. A more strategic approach was needed. So, after the 1991 season concluded, a formal proposal for the Premier League was put forward. The primary incentive remained clear: generate more money for English football to challenge the dominance of Serie A and La Liga. This new league would operate with considerable independence from both the Football League and the FA, especially in negotiating its own commercial deals and broadcast rights. What followed was a bidding war. Multiple broadcasters, including the established ITV and BBC, competed for the rights, but it was a newer satellite broadcaster, Sky, that made the most audacious move. Sky secured the exclusive live broadcasting rights with a revolutionary bid of £304 million over 5 years. It was an amount that fundamentally changed the financial landscape of the sport forever. As a compromise, the BBC was awarded the highlights package, ensuring the continuation of its iconic show Match of the Day for a terrestrial audience. With the deal in place, the 1992-93 season kicked off as the inaugural year of the new FA Premier League. It began with 22 teams, a larger number than many had anticipated, including clubs like Oldham Athletic who found themselves on the ground floor of a new era. This initial structure of 22 clubs did not last long. The number of teams was later reduced to 20, a decision heavily influenced by events happening in European football. The old UEFA European Champion Clubs Cup was being rebranded and expanded into the UEFA Champions League, a change that meant more fixtures for the clubs involved. With 2 extra teams in the Premier League, trying to schedule these demanding European games became a logistical nightmare for English clubs. Reducing the league to 20 teams was a pragmatic solution, making the calendar far more manageable and giving top clubs a better chance to compete on multiple fronts. In that very first season, Manchester United emerged as the inaugural Premier League champions, with Aston Villa finishing as runners-up. In a result that surprised many, Norwich City secured 3rd place. At the other end of the table, Crystal Palace, Middlesbrough, and Nottingham Forest were the first 3 clubs to be relegated from the new top flight. The individual honors reflected the season's narratives. Teddy Sheringham became the top goal scorer with 22 goals to his name. The very first goal in Premier League history, however, was scored by Brian Deane of Sheffield United. Aston Villa's impressive campaign was recognized when their commanding centre-back, Paul McGrath, was named Player of the Year. A 19-year-old Ryan Giggs, already a dazzling talent for the champions, received the Young Player of the Year award. The season was also defined by a pivotal transfer. Eric Cantona made a controversial move from reigning First Division champions Leeds United to their rivals Manchester United, a signing that would prove to be a catalyst for a dynasty. Cantona also made his mark by scoring the first ever Premier League hat-trick. Amidst all the change and high stakes, the league showed surprising managerial stability. Only one manager, Ian Porterfield at Chelsea, was sacked during the entire campaign. Yet not everything was glittering and new. The season also holds the record for the lowest attendance in Premier League history, a stark reminder of the old days, when just 3,039 people watched a match between Wimbledon and Everton at Selhurst Park. Mid-1990s Premier League, dominance and key events, 1993-1997, what followed was not just a title defense, but a statement of intent. Manchester United won the Premier League again in the 1993-94 season, cementing a new era of dominance. This was, in fact, Sir Alex Ferguson's first full season in charge, a campaign that demonstrated his strategic vision was taking deep root within the club. While Old Trafford celebrated, others faced the harsh reality of the top flight. Sheffield United, Oldham Athletic, and Swindon Town were all relegated, finding the pace of the division too much to handle. For Swindon Town, the season was a particularly brutal lesson in elite football. They conceded 100 goals, a defensive record that became a cautionary tale for any newly promoted side. At the other end of the pitch, a new force was emerging. Andy Cole of Newcastle United scored 34 goals, an astonishing haul for a player in his first Premier League season. His goal-scoring prowess did not go unnoticed, earning him the Young Player of the Year award. The senior award, however, went to the league's creative genius, Eric Cantona, who was named Player of the Year for his pivotal role in United's success. The top 4 teams that year laid out a map of the coming power struggles: Manchester United, Blackburn Rovers, Newcastle United, and Arsenal. United's strength was bolstered by a key acquisition, as Roy Keane transferred from a struggling Nottingham Forest for £3.75 million, a British record at the time. Their campaign was built on relentless consistency, including an unbeaten run that stretched for 22 games. Yet the crown is never held for long without a challenge. Blackburn Rovers won the Premier League title in the 1994-95 season, finishing just 1 point ahead of Manchester United. The entire race came down to the final, frantic day of the season. Blackburn's fate was sealed not by their own victory, but by their rivals' stumble. Manchester United could only manage a 1-1 draw against West Ham United, a result that handed the championship to a team over 170 miles away. The architect of Blackburn's attack, Alan Shearer, once again proved his quality, matching Andy Cole's previous tally with 34 goals of his own. At the time, this level of domestic success had a singular European reward. The Champions League format permitted only one team from each nation to participate, making the title a zero-sum game. This was also the last year the Premier League would feature 22 teams, a size that was about to be streamlined. To facilitate this change, the relegation rules were temporarily altered, with 4 teams dropping down at the end of the season instead of the usual 3. Crystal Palace, Norwich City, Leicester City, and Ipswich Town were the 4 clubs to fall through this expanded trapdoor. The season's drama was not confined to the pitch, as the transfer record was shattered when Andy Cole moved from Newcastle to Manchester United. But the biggest story involved Eric Cantona, who received an 8-month ban from all football after he physically confronted a fan in the stands at Selhurst Park. His absence set the stage for one of the most memorable title races in the league's history. The 1995-96 season became a fierce battle between Manchester United and Newcastle United, a narrative shaped by their respective managers, Sir Alex Ferguson and Kevin Keegan. On Boxing Day, it appeared Keegan's attacking side was unstoppable, sitting 10 points clear at the top of the table. Yet Ferguson and his team began a methodical chase, a slow and steady erosion of that seemingly insurmountable lead. A pivotal moment came when Eric Cantona, upon his return, scored the only goal in a 1-0 away win at St James Park, reducing Newcastle's lead to just 1 point. The contest became so close that the Premier League made preparations for a potential championship playoff match at Wembley, an unprecedented contingency if the 2 teams tied for first place on points, goal difference, and goals scored. It was not needed. On the final day, Manchester United held a 2-point advantage. United secured their part of the bargain, winning their final game 3-0. All eyes then turned to Newcastle United, who faltered at the last hurdle, managing only a draw against Middlesbrough. Manchester United had won the Premier League title once more, a triumph of resilience over flair. Elsewhere, Arsenal was in a state of transition, managed by Bruce Rioch for a single season before the arrival of a figure who would change English football forever. Bolton Wanderers, Queen's Park Rangers, and Manchester City were relegated, the latter dropping down on goal difference in a painful conclusion to their season. Alan Shearer was again the top goal scorer with 31 goals, a testament to his consistent brilliance. The Player of the Year award went to his Newcastle teammate, Les Ferdinand, while the prodigious Robbie Fowler of Liverpool was named Young Player of the Year. It was a league with a distinct identity. Every single Premier League manager in the 1995-96 season was either English, Scottish, or Irish. The following season, Manchester United won the Premier League title again, but in a very different fashion. Their 75 points in 1996-97 represented the lowest points total for a Premier League champion, a figure not seen for a title winner since 1981. It was a victory won through grit in a league that felt more unpredictable than ever. One of the season's most compelling stories was Middlesbrough, a club that spent millions on international stars like Emerson, Fabrizio Ravanelli, Juninho, and Gianluca Festa. Despite this investment, Middlesbrough was relegated on the final day of the season. Their fate was sealed not just by results, but by a controversial 3-point deduction. The club had postponed a fixture against Blackburn Rovers in December, citing an unprecedented crisis where 23 players were unavailable due to illness or injury. The Premier League denied Middlesbrough's request, and the subsequent punishment proved fatal to their survival hopes. As a direct result of this deduction, Coventry City narrowly avoided relegation, staying up by a single point. Joining Middlesbrough in the drop were Nottingham Forest and Sunderland. The managerial landscape was also evolving, with Dutch legend Ruud Gullit managing a stylish Chelsea team and Harry Redknapp establishing his credentials at West Ham United. Alan Shearer, now at his boyhood club Newcastle, was once again the top goal scorer. In a strange twist, the Player of the Season award went to a relegated player, the brilliant Juninho of Middlesbrough. A new star was rising at Old Trafford, as David Beckham was named Young Player of the Year. But the most significant arrival occurred in North London, where Arsene Wenger was appointed as the new manager of Arsenal, an event that would quietly redraw the map of power. Late 1990s, Arsenal's rise and United's continued dominance 1997-2000, and that quiet revolution began not with a thunderclap but with a change in the menu, a shift in stretching routines, a different way of seeing the pitch itself. Arsene Wenger, in his first full season, was reshaping Arsenal from the inside out. The result was a team that played with a newfound pace and precision, a blend of English resilience and continental flair. In the 1997-98 season, this fusion proved unstoppable. Arsenal did not just win the Premier League title, they secured the coveted double, adding the FA Cup to their trophy cabinet. They became only the second team to achieve this feat in the Premier League era, standing alongside their great rivals, Manchester United. For Wenger, it was a personal landmark. He became the very first manager from outside the British Isles to win a league title in England, a symbolic crack in the old guard's foundation. Manchester United, the dominant force of the decade, were forced to settle for the runners-up spot, watching a new power dynamic take shape. It was a season of brutal lessons for others too. All three promoted teams, Barnsley, Bolton Wanderers, and Crystal Palace, found the top flight unforgiving and were relegated straight back down. The individual accolades were shared, with Dion Dublin of Coventry City, a young Michael Owen at Liverpool, and Blackburn Rovers' Chris Sutton all finishing as top goal scorers. The league itself was evolving its public face, introducing a new logo featuring a proud lion's head, a symbol of its growing global stature. This growth was fueled by an influx of foreign talent that was changing the very texture of the game. You saw it in the explosive runs of Nicolas Anelka at Arsenal, the clever play of Gianluca Vialli at Chelsea, and the predatory instincts of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer for Manchester United. Wenger's innovative training and tactical approaches were no longer just an internal Arsenal affair, they were sending ripples across the entire league. The following season, 1998-99, felt like a direct response, a year of immense drama and consequence. Manchester United, stung by the previous year, came back with ferocious intent, winning their fifth Premier League title in just 7 seasons. This was no procession. It was a grueling, nerve-shredding race that went to the final day of the season. United finished just a single point ahead of Arsenal, with a strong Chelsea side right behind them. The entire campaign hinged on that last afternoon, with Manchester United needing a victory against Tottenham Hotspur at Old Trafford to seal their triumph, a match they won 2-1. Behind the top three, Leeds United were building something special, finishing in an impressive 4th place. At the other end, the fight for survival claimed Charlton Athletic, Blackburn Rovers, and the former European champions Nottingham Forest. Teams like Derby County and Wimbledon continued to hold their own in the league, with Wimbledon representing a consistent, if unconventional, top-flight presence for many years. The Golden Boot was again a shared prize, split between 3 prolific forwards, Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank, Michael Owen, and Dwight Yorke. The individual awards reflected United's success. Alex Ferguson was deservedly named Manager of the Season for orchestrating the comeback. His star striker, Dwight Yorke, was recognized as the Player of the Season for his pivotal goals. The Young Player of the Year award, however, went to Arsenal's Nicolas Anelka, a testament to his electrifying talent. Chelsea's 3rd-place finish solidified their status as a rising power, even before the era of Roman Abramovich's ownership. Just behind them, West Ham United secured fifth place, a sign of real progress under the management of Harry Redknapp. If the previous season was a tightrope walk, the 1999-2000 campaign was a victory march. Manchester United retained their Premier League crown with an astonishing 18-point margin, a gap that spoke of total dominance. Their closest challengers could only watch from a distance. Leeds United continued their ascent, finishing third and earning a place in the Champions League third qualifying round. That Leeds team was a formidable unit, boasting talents like Michael Bridges, the dazzling Harry Kewell, set-piece specialist Ian Hart, and the reliable Nigel Martyn in goal. The top goal scorer was not from one of the title challengers, but from a resolute Sunderland side. Kevin Phillips produced a phenomenal season, scoring 30 goals to claim the Golden Boot. His heroics earned him the Player of the Year award and helped Sunderland to a remarkable seventh-place finish. The relegation battle saw Wimbledon's long stay in the top division finally come to an end, joined by Sheffield Wednesday and Watford, who accumulated a meager 24 points. In a curious twist, 17th-placed Bradford City earned a spot in the UEFA Intertoto Cup, a route into European competition from the edge of domestic survival. This period was also marked by managerial shifts, with the celebrated Ruud Gullit having a spell in charge of Newcastle United. Across the league, a new generation was beginning to make its mark. You could see the raw power of a young Steven Gerrard at Liverpool, the intelligent movement of Frank Lampard at West Ham, and the composed defending of John Terry at Chelsea. At Arsenal, Wenger's French connection deepened, with Patrick Vieira's midfield authority now complemented by the blistering pace of Thierry Henry, who had joined Anelka in North London. In the assists chart, it was another foreign star who led the way, with Newcastle United's Norberto Solano creating 15 goals, his deliveries a constant threat from the right wing. Early 2000s, Arsenal and Manchester United's rivalry, 2000-2003, which only solidified the sense of an unshakable dynasty taking hold as the new millennium began. Manchester United secured their seventh Premier League title in just 9 years during the 2001 season, a feat of sustained dominance that left little room for challengers at the summit. The campaign ended with them comfortably ahead of a familiar cast of rivals, with Arsenal and Liverpool left to contest the remaining top spots, defining the era's power structure. Just behind them, Leeds United claimed fourth place, continuing a period of intense promise and ambition that felt on the verge of breaking through. Yet the most captivating story unfolded further down the table, where Ipswich Town defied all expectations to finish fifth. For a newly promoted side, this was a monumental achievement, a testament to a perfectly executed campaign that caught nearly everyone by surprise. Their success was fueled by the remarkable form of Marcus Stewart, whose 19 goals placed him among the league's elite forwards. The architect of this unlikely ascent was manager George Burley, whose tactical acumen and motivational skill were formally recognized when he was named Manager of the Year, an award that rarely went to someone outside the championship-winning club. While Burley orchestrated Ipswich's miracle, the league's individual honors were collected by other emerging and established giants. Patrick Vieira, the formidable heart of Arsenal's midfield, was named the Player of the Year, a nod to his complete and commanding presence. At the other end of the career spectrum, a young Steven Gerrard received the Young Player of the Year award, signaling the arrival of a generational English talent. The Golden Boot, however, went to a different London club, with Chelsea's Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank finishing as the top goal scorer after finding the net 23 times. His clinical finishing offered a glimpse of the firepower being assembled at Stamford Bridge. Meanwhile, at the opposite end of the table, Manchester City suffered the drop, a relegation that now seems almost impossible to imagine, underscoring how dramatically fortunes were about to change. The following season, the landscape did indeed shift. Arsenal, having shadowed the champions for years, finally seized the crown, winning the Premier League title in the 2002 campaign. This triumph marked a definitive transfer of power, culminating in the most symbolic of victories. The league was famously won at Old Trafford, with a 1-0 victory over Manchester United that served as a formal coronation on enemy soil. For Ipswich Town, however, the dream had dissolved into a nightmare. They were relegated just 1 year after their fifth-place finish, a brutal lesson in the league's unforgiving nature. In a strange twist of fate, their relegation was accompanied by a peculiar consolation prize. Ipswich qualified for the UEFA Cup as winners of the Premiership Fair Play League, entering European competition while simultaneously dropping into the second tier. Joining them in the descent were Derby County and Leicester City, rounding out the trio of relegated clubs for the season. Arsenal's championship was built on a commanding performance that saw them win the league by a comfortable 7 points. Their attacking flair was spearheaded by Thierry Henry, who claimed the top goal scorer award with 24 goals, beginning his own era of dominance. The success was team-wide, with his compatriot Robert Pires being named Player of the Year for his sublime contributions from midfield. This left Manchester United in the unfamiliar position of third, a rare finish outside the top two that signaled a temporary crack in their armor. Liverpool capitalized on this slip, rising to become runners-up and establishing themselves as Arsenal's most immediate challengers. In a first for the Premier League, all three promoted teams successfully avoided relegation, with Fulham, Bolton Wanderers, and Blackburn Rovers all securing their top-flight status. It spoke to a growing strength throughout the pyramid. The title race itself was not a simple two-horse affair for the entire season. Both Newcastle and Leeds were highly competitive, with Leeds United even finding themselves top of the table at Christmas before their campaign faltered. Away from the title contenders, other clubs carved out more modest but consistent identities. Everton, for example, consistently finished in the bottom half during the early 2000s, typically between 12th and 16th place, a period far removed from their exceptional 6th-place finish in 1996. Aston Villa occupied a more stable position, generally finishing between 5th and 10th, remaining a solid top-flight team but never quite managing to break into the top four. That brief interruption to the old order would not last. Manchester United roared back in the 2003 season, claiming their 8th Premier League title in 11 years in a dramatic comeback. The season had seemed to belong to Arsenal, who at one point in early March held a commanding 8-point lead at the top of the table. Their form appeared unstoppable. The Gunners had equaled a top-flight record by stringing together 14 consecutive wins, a streak that showcased their lethal combination of speed and technical brilliance. They also extended an unbeaten run to 30 Premier League games and set a new benchmark by scoring in a record 55 consecutive league matches, a testament to their relentless attacking philosophy. Further down the coast, Southampton were enjoying their own historic season, qualifying for Europe for the first time since 1984, a major accomplishment for the club. At the bottom, however, the fight for survival was brutal. Sunderland were relegated with a then record low of 19 points, joined by West Bromwich Albion and a surprisingly talented West Ham United squad. Bolton Wanderers pulled off a great escape, avoiding relegation on the very last day of the season in a dramatic conclusion to the campaign. The fate of West Ham United was particularly harsh. Their final tally of 42 points was the highest ever recorded for a relegated team in a 20-team division, highlighting the fierce competition that year. The title-winning charge from Manchester United was powered by the goals of Ruud van Nistelrooy, whose 25 strikes earned him the Golden Boot. He was not without competition, as both James Beattie of Southampton and Leeds United's Mark Viduka also produced prolific scoring seasons, keeping the race tight. Despite his team losing the title, Thierry Henry's individual excellence was recognized once again as he was named Player of the Year. The Young Player of the Year award went to Newcastle's German Yanez, who emerged from a shortlist brimming with future stars, including Craig Bellamy, Jermaine Defoe, John O'Shea, Scott Parker, and a 16-year-old Wayne Rooney. Unsurprisingly, the mastermind behind United's incredible title recovery, Sir Alex Ferguson, was named Manager of the Year. In a final echo of the previous season's fair play subplot, Manchester City, now back in the top flight, secured their own route into Europe by winning the UEFA Fair Play Award. This was not merely about avoiding bookings. The award considered points for red and yellow cards, positive attacking play, respect shown towards opponents, and the conduct of team officials, offering a different measure of a club's character. Arsenal's Invincibles and Mourinho's Chelsea arrival 2003-2006, the air at Highbury felt different that year, charged with a strange and perfect stillness. You could see it in the way Arsenal moved, a team playing not just against their opponents but against history itself. For 38 games they did not lose, a feat of collective will that etched their name into legend. Their final record showed 26 wins and 12 draws, a golden Premier League trophy, their unique reward for an invincible season. They were untouchable, finishing a full 11 points clear of their nearest rival. That rival was a rapidly changing Chelsea, a club newly flush with cash and ambition. Their squad now included names like Damien Duff, Hernan Crespo, and the formidable Claude Makélélé, a sign of the power shift to come. But even they could not halt the Arsenal machine, driven by the sheer genius of Thierry Henry. He found the net 30 times that season, a display of grace and power that earned him the Player of the Year award. While the young Scott Parker received his own recognition as the Young Player of the Year, it was Henry who defined the era. His artistry was rivaled only by his efficiency, a combination that made defenders helpless. Beyond the title race, other stories unfolded. You had the raw goal-scoring power of Yakubu Aiyegbeni, who hit 16 goals for Portsmouth, and the solid campaigns of Newcastle United and Charlton Athletic finishing 5th and 7th. But for others, the season was a catastrophe. Leicester City and Wolverhampton Wanderers fell, joined by a Leeds United side paying the ultimate price for financial recklessness. Their failure to qualify for the Champions League in prior years had triggered a financial implosion, a cautionary tale of hubris. Even Everton flirted with disaster, surviving in 17th place by the narrowest of margins. Meanwhile, qualification for the UEFA Cup came from unexpected places, with Middlesbrough lifting the League Cup and the Championship club Millwall reaching the FA Cup final against Manchester United. This was the season the landscape began to harden. A new term entered the lexicon, the top four. For years to come, Arsenal, Chelsea, Liverpool, and Manchester United would create a private party at the summit of the league, a concentration of power that prompted Kevin Keegan to make a curious prediction. He suggested the Premier League was becoming the most boring yet greatest league in the world, a paradox of predictable outcomes delivered with breathtaking quality. And just as this new order seemed to settle, a new force arrived to shatter it. His name was Jose Mourinho, and he called himself the Special One. His impact was immediate and absolute. In the 2004-2005 season, Chelsea did not just win the title, they redefined what it took to conquer England. They amassed a staggering 95 points, a new record. Their success was built on an impenetrable defense that conceded a mere 15 goals all season, another unprecedented benchmark. At the heart of that defense was John Terry, who was rightly named Player of the Year. It was a season of titans in the dugout, with Mourinho, Arsene Wenger, Rafael Benitez, and Sir Alex Ferguson occupying the top four spots, a Mount Rushmore of modern management. Curiously, Benitez would later find himself managing Southampton during this period of intense top-level competition. The most dramatic shift occurred just below them. Everton, a team that had nearly been relegated, mounted an astonishing turnaround to finish fourth, securing a Champions League qualification spot. Their rise was as shocking as the chaos at the bottom of the table. The final day saw West Bromwich Albion, Crystal Palace, Norwich City, and Southampton all fighting for survival. West Brom, bottom at Christmas and 8 points from safety, pulled off a miracle. Their victory over Portsmouth, combined with other results, made them the first team in Premier League history to survive from such a hopeless position. For the former champions, it was a season of recalibration. Arsenal saw their historic 49-game unbeaten streak come to a bitter end in a fiery 2-0 loss at Old Trafford against Manchester United. While Europe still beckoned for Bolton Wanderers and Middlesbrough, the aura of invincibility was gone. Thierry Henry remained the league's most lethal striker, finishing as top scorer once again, but the individual awards now went to his rivals. A young, explosive Wayne Rooney at Manchester United was named Young Player of the Year, signaling the arrival of the next generation. The Blue Tide showed no sign of receding. Chelsea began the 2005 to 2006 season as they had finished the last, winning 14 of their first 16 games to establish an immediate and insurmountable lead. They would not be caught. The title was sealed with a flourish, a dominant 3-0 victory over their closest challengers, Manchester United, at Stamford Bridge. It was a coronation that confirmed the new hierarchy, with the same top four of Chelsea, Manchester United, Liverpool, and Arsenal occupying the Champions League places. Yet the rules for European qualification were shifting. Now, only the top two teams were guaranteed entry into the Champions League group stage. The third and fourth place sides had to navigate a tricky third qualifying round. Similarly, fifth and sixth place only granted a spot in the UEFA Cup first round, not the group stage itself. Tottenham Hotspur, Blackburn Rovers, and West Ham United were the teams to seize those UEFA Cup places. For others, the season ended in despair. Birmingham City, Sunderland with a paltry 15 points, and the previous year's miracle survivors West Brom all suffered relegation. Individually, some patterns held firm. Thierry Henry once again claimed the Golden Boot, his consistency a marvel in a changing league, while Chelsea's Didier Drogba proved his value with the most assists. The season also saw an impressive debut from Wigan Athletic, who finished a remarkable 10th under manager Paul Jewell. But the major awards reflected the dominance of the era's great teams. Liverpool's captain Steven Gerrard was named Player of the Year, while Wayne Rooney secured the Young Player of the Year award for a second consecutive time. Unsurprisingly, the man who orchestrated it all, Jose Mourinho, was crowned Manager of the Year, the architect of a dynasty that had learned to make perfection look routine. Late 2000s, United's continued success and City's emergence, 2006-2009, you could feel a shift in the air, a changing of the guard, as the 2006 season began without two of its most iconic figures. The league had to learn to live without the raised arm of Alan Shearer and the impossible grace of Dennis Bergkamp, leaving a void that felt larger than just two players. In their absence, other stories began to take root, with clubs like Fulham and a Harry Redknapp-led Portsmouth carving out distinct identities in the top flight. This was also a season of new faces, welcoming Reading to the top division for the first time in their history, alongside the returning Sheffield United after a 12-year absence and a determined Watford. Sheffield United, in particular, made their presence felt immediately, securing an impressive 8th-place finish that defied expectations for a newly promoted side. The top of the table, however, had a very familiar look. The established elite of Manchester United, Chelsea, Arsenal, and Liverpool locked out the top four spots once again, continuing their stranglehold on the Champions League places. Just below them, the fight for European football was fierce, with Tottenham Hotspur, Everton, and Bolton Wanderers all securing qualification through their domestic cup performances. For Bolton, this was becoming a habit. Qualifying for Europe was a regular feature of their era under Sam Allardyce, a testament to their tough, effective style. Blackburn Rovers were not far behind, finishing 10th and earning a spot in the UEFA Intertoto Cup, while Portsmouth settled into a comfortable 9th position. Manchester City, by contrast, endured a season of struggle, languishing in 14th place, a world away from the powerhouse they would later become. The real drama, however, was at the bottom of the table. On the final day, the relegation battle was a knife-edge affair, with Wigan Athletic and Sheffield United perfectly level on points. Both teams had identical records, an uncanny symmetry of wins, draws, and losses that meant survival would come down to the finest of margins. In the end, Wigan stayed up by virtue of a superior goal difference, a brutal way to decide a season's fate, while Charlton Athletic and Watford were already condemned to the drop. Yet, the most contentious survival story belonged to West Ham United. They secured their safety with a 1-0 victory over champions Manchester United, the winning goal scored by Carlos Tevez. That goal would become the epicenter of a massive controversy. It emerged that Tevez was not technically a West Ham player, his registration held by a third-party entity, which was against league rules. This revelation of his ineligibility to play sparked outrage, particularly from the relegated Sheffield United, who felt they had been cheated out of their place in the league. They pursued legal action against the Premier League itself, and were eventually awarded £30 million in compensation, a landmark ruling that highlighted the growing complexities of player ownership in the modern game. On the pitch, the season belonged to Didier Drogba, whose 20 goals for Chelsea earned him the Golden Boot. He was followed closely by Blackburn's Benny McCarthy, who found the net 18 times in a brilliant debut season. A young Cristiano Ronaldo was beginning to show his true potential, finishing third with 17 goals, a sign of the dominance to come. A small piece of history was also made when Fulham's Moritz Valls scored the 15,000th goal in Premier League history. Ronaldo's exceptional year was capped off when he was named both the PFA Players' Player of the Year and the Young Player of the Year, a rare and remarkable double. The PFA Team of the Year was a sea of red, overwhelmingly dominated by Manchester United players, featuring their goalkeeper, the entire back four, and 3 midfielders, a clear reflection of their title-winning campaign. The following season, 2007 to 2008, began under new sponsorship, officially becoming the Barclays Premier League. The very first goal of this new era was scored by Sunderland's Michael Chopra. At the end of it all, Manchester United stood as champions once again, retaining their title in a race that went right down to the wire. The top four remained unchanged, with United followed by Chelsea, Arsenal, and Liverpool. It was a strong year for English clubs in Europe, resulting in an incredible 9 teams qualifying for continental competitions, including Everton, Aston Villa, Portsmouth, Tottenham Hotspur, and even Manchester City, who scraped in via the Fair Play ranking. This season also gave us the highest scoring match in the league's history, a chaotic and unforgettable 7-4 victory for Portsmouth over Reading. The newly promoted sides that year were Sunderland, Birmingham City, and Derby County, and it was Derby who would make history for all the wrong reasons. They finished the season at the very bottom with a record low of just 11 points, a total that remains the lowest in Premier League history. Their campaign was a study in futility, managing only a single victory, 8 draws, and 29 losses. That solitary win came against Newcastle, a fleeting moment of joy in a season of despair. The title race, in contrast, was electric. Before the final day, Manchester United and Chelsea were locked on 84 points each. It all came down to the last 90 minutes. United traveled to Wigan and secured a professional 2-0 win, while Chelsea could only manage a 1-1 draw with Bolton Wanderers, handing the trophy to their rivals. This was Manchester United's 10th Premier League title, bringing them one step closer to Liverpool's then record of 18 overall English League championships. The fight for survival was just as tense. On the final day, Bolton, Fulham, Reading, and Birmingham City were all in danger. Fulham, who had looked doomed for months, pulled off a great escape, beating Portsmouth 1-0. That single goal was enough to see them survive on goal difference, finishing just 3 goals better than the relegated Reading. The season also ended with one of the most bizarre results on record, as Middlesbrough dismantled Manchester City with an 8-1 victory. This was also the year the Premier League officially surpassed Spain's La Liga in UEFA's coefficient rankings for the first time in over 2 decades, a testament to the strength of its clubs, cemented by Manchester United and Chelsea reaching that year's Champions League final. Individually, Cristiano Ronaldo was untouchable, winning the Golden Boot with an astonishing 31 goals. He was a force of nature, followed by a cast of other prolific scorers like Liverpool's new signing Fernando Torres, Arsenal's Emmanuel Adebayor, and Blackburn's Roque Santa Cruz. For his masterful guidance of United, Sir Alex Ferguson won the Manager of the Year award for the 8th time. Ronaldo, unsurprisingly, was named Player of the Year again, while Arsenal's Cesc Fabregas was recognized as the Young Player of the Year. Manchester United made it 3 titles in a row in the 2008-2009 season, their 11th Premier League crown. This victory was hard-fought, won in a tight race with a resurgent Liverpool, who managed to do the double over United during the season. Liverpool's own title challenge, however, was ultimately undone by a frustrating series of draws that cost them crucial points. This season marked a seismic shift in the league's landscape, as Manchester City was taken over by the Abu Dhabi United Group. Their ambition was announced with the stunning deadline day signing of Robinho from Real Madrid for a British record of £32.5 million, signaling the birth of a new footballing superpower. For the 7th consecutive season, the top 4 was an exclusive club of Manchester United, Liverpool, Chelsea, and Arsenal. European qualification was changing, too. The old UEFA Cup and Intertoto Cup were being rebranded, which meant 5th, 6th, and 7th place finishes more reliably led to a European campaign. Everton, Aston Villa, and Fulham were the beneficiaries, securing their spots for the following season. Manchester City, in their first full season under new ownership, finished a respectable 10th. That year also saw the arrival of West Bromwich Albion, Stoke City for the first time in 23 years, and Hull City making their top-flight debut. The managerial carousel was spinning, with Jose Mourinho no longer at Chelsea, replaced first by Luis Felipe Scolari and then by Guus Hiddink. In a surprise move, Alan Shearer took over as interim manager of his beloved Newcastle United in a desperate bid to save them from the drop. At the end of a dramatic final day, however, Newcastle were relegated alongside Middlesbrough and West Bromwich Albion. The battle to avoid that last spot was intense, with Bolton, Hull, and Sunderland all in the mix. Middlesbrough lost 2-1 to West Ham, and Shearer's Newcastle fell 1-0 to Aston Villa, sealing their fates. Both Hull City and Sunderland managed to stay up, despite losing their own final games. The Golden Boot was won by Chelsea's Nicolas Anelka, who scored 19 goals. Cristiano Ronaldo finished his final season in England as the runner-up, with Liverpool's Steven Gerrard in third. The PFA Player of the Year award went to a Manchester United veteran, Ryan Giggs, a recognition of his incredible longevity and contribution. Aston Villa's dynamic winger, Ashley Young, was named the Young Player of the Year. And amid all the title races and relegation scraps, the season produced moments of pure, unpredictable chaos, none more so than a breathtaking 4-4 draw between Liverpool and Arsenal at Anfield, a match that swung back and forth until the very last second. Early 2010s, Chelsea's resurgence and Agro's moment, 2009-2012. While on the blue side of London, a different kind of machine was being assembled under Carlo Ancelotti. His Chelsea side played with a swagger, an attacking force that felt almost inevitable. You saw their ambition not just in the results, but in the sheer weight of numbers they put on the scoreboard, setting a new Premier League record by scoring 103 goals across the season. This relentless offense translated to an average of 2.71 goals per game, a figure that spoke to a team simply overwhelming its opposition. Didier Drogba embodied this power, claiming the Golden Boot with a formidable tally of 29 goals. The title race, however, was no procession. It ran until the very last day, a tense 2-horse race with Manchester United just a single point behind, waiting for any slip. The final Sunday presented a clear scenario. Chelsea had to defeat Wigan at home, while United, facing Stoke City, needed a Chelsea failure to capitalize. Ancelotti's team left no room for doubt. They dismantled Wigan with an 8-0 victory, securing the Premier League title and in doing so, the first league and cup double in the club's history. It was a statement of dominance. Elsewhere, the league table was showing signs of a tectonic shift. For the first time in 5 years, the established top four was breached. Harry Redknapp had guided Tottenham Hotspur to a new level of consistency and ambition. The pivotal moment came in a direct confrontation with their new rivals, Manchester City, at the Etihad Stadium. A victory there secured Tottenham their first-ever qualification for the Champions League, a landmark achievement that signaled a new era for the North London club. Redknapp's work was rightfully recognized when he was named Manager of the Year for this breakthrough. While Tottenham celebrated, Manchester City, Aston Villa and Liverpool all secured their own places in European competition. Over at Goodison Park, David Moyes continued to keep Everton punching well above its weight, a constant and respected presence. The PFA Player of the Year award went not to a Chelsea champion, but to Manchester United's Wayne Rooney, acknowledging his phenomenal individual season. His Aston Villa colleague James Milner was recognized as the Young Player of the Year, a testament to a generation of English talent making its mark. The Team of the Year also featured standout performers like Joe Hart, whose heroics on loan at Birmingham City were undeniable, and Richard Dunn, a rock in Aston Villa's defense. The season also held a darker milestone. Portsmouth became the first Premier League club to enter administration, a financial collapse that resulted in a 9-point deduction and sealed their relegation. Joining them in the top flight that year were the newly promoted Wolverhampton Wanderers, Birmingham City and Burnley. For Burnley, their return was a moment of particular significance, ending a 33-year absence from the highest level of English football. The following season saw Manchester United reclaim their throne. Sir Alex Ferguson's side won their 12th Premier League title, clinching it with a 1-1 draw away at Blackburn Rovers. More importantly, this title was their 19th overall, a historic achievement that finally saw them equal Liverpool's long-standing record as the most successful club in English league history. The league itself was evolving, introducing a new homegrown players rule designed to nurture domestic talent. Joining the division were Newcastle United and West Bromwich Albion, both making a swift return, alongside a team that captured the imagination, Blackpool. Their promotion brought them back to the top flight for the first time in 39 years, promising a season of exciting, attacking football. Manchester City's ascent continued as they broke into the top four for the very first time, finishing third just behind Chelsea. This confirmed the new order at the top of the table was here to stay. Tottenham Hotspur's adventure in Europe meant they settled for a Europa League spot, joined by Fulham and an unlikely qualifier in Stoke City, who reached the FA Cup final. Even more surprising was the European qualification of Birmingham City. Despite winning the League Cup, they found themselves embroiled in a desperate, last-day fight for survival and ultimately failed, becoming a rare example of a relegated team earning a European place. The relegation battle was one of the most fraught in memory, a 5-way scramble involving Blackpool, Birmingham, Wolves, Wigan, and Blackburn. Blackpool's fairy tale ended with a loss at Old Trafford. Birmingham's defeat to Tottenham sealed their fate. Wigan Athletic, however, pulled off a great escape, beating Stoke to secure their safety. Wolves lost to Blackburn on that final day, but survived by the slimmest of margins as their rivals also fell. At the top of the scoring charts, the Golden Boot was shared. Manchester United's Dimitar Berbatov and Manchester City's Carlos Tevez both finished with 20 goals. Arsenal's Robin van Persie was not far behind, netting 18. For his masterminding of United's record-tying title, Sir Alex Ferguson was once again named Manager of the Year. The individual player accolades went to Tottenham Hotspur's Gareth Bale, whose electrifying performances earned him PFA Player of the Year, while Arsenal's Jack Wilshere was named the Best Young Player. It was a season of change in the dugout too. Liverpool parted ways with Rafael Benitez, bringing in Roy Hodgson, whose tenure would prove to be brief, lasting only around 5 months. Then came a season that would end with the single most dramatic moment in Premier League history. Manchester City, powered by new investment and ambition, won their first league title in 44 years, their third English title overall. They did it by overcoming their cross-town rivals, Manchester United on goal difference alone, a new benchmark for a title race margin. The entire campaign boiled down to the final seconds of the final day. Both Manchester clubs were level on points, but City held a crucial advantage in goal difference. They faced Queen's Park Rangers at home, needing a win, but with the match deep into its 90th minute, City were inexplicably losing 2-1. The title was slipping away, seemingly destined for Old Trafford. Then came an unbelievable comeback, culminating in Sergio Aguero's winning goal in the dying embers of injury time, a moment of pure, unscripted chaos and ecstasy. It was a finish that defied belief. That season saw the promotion of Norwich City, along with Queen's Park Rangers, who returned after 15 years, and Swansea City, ending a 28-year wait. For much of the campaign, Tottenham Hotspur looked secure in third place, but a late-season slump saw them finish fourth, a single point behind their rivals Arsenal. In a cruel twist of fate, even this was not enough. Tottenham were denied a Champions League spot because Chelsea, who finished sixth, went on to win the 2011-12 Champions League, granting them automatic entry and displacing Spurs. Newcastle United, finishing an incredible fifth, and Liverpool, who finished eighth, both qualified for Europe. Liverpool's place was secured by winning the League Cup, which meant seventh-placed Everton missed out despite their higher league position. The fight to avoid the drop was just as intense. Blackburn Rovers and Wolves were already down, leaving Aston Villa, QPR, and Bolton Wanderers in a final day battle. QPR's loss to Manchester City did not doom them, as Bolton could only manage a draw at Stoke, a result which sent them down instead. For only the second time in Premier League history, all three promoted clubs survived, with Swansea and Norwich finishing comfortably in 11th and 12th place respectively. Robin van Persie of Arsenal was the undisputed top scorer, hitting the net 30 times and earning the PFA Player of the Year award. Alan Pardew was named Manager of the Season for guiding Newcastle to their remarkable fifth-place finish, spearheaded by the potent striking partnership of Demba Ba and Papis Cissé. Kyle Walker of Tottenham Hotspur was named Young Player of the Year. For Chelsea, it was another turbulent year in management. Carlo Ancelotti was dismissed, replaced by André Villas-Boas, who was himself sacked mid-season. His interim replacement, Roberto Di Matteo, then did the unthinkable, leading a struggling team not just to an FA Cup but to that historic, and for Tottenham, fateful Champions League trophy. Mid-2010s, Ferguson's farewell, Gerrard's slip, and Leicester's miracle, 2012-2016, that transfer felt like a shift in the landscape, a deliberate move to reclaim what was lost. Robin van Persie left Arsenal for Manchester United, a decision that immediately rebalanced the league. The effect was instant and decisive. United secured their 13th Premier League title with a 3-0 victory over Aston Villa at Old Trafford, a performance that encapsulated their season-long control. They dominated the campaign from nearly start to finish, ultimately winning the league by a comfortable 11 points. But this triumph carried a different weight. It marked the final chapter, the end of an era defined by one figure, as Sir Alex Ferguson announced his retirement from management. While a dynasty concluded at the top, new stories began at the bottom. Reading, Southampton, and West Ham United arrived, promoted into the intense glare of the top flight. Their seasons varied wildly, but the fight for survival was where the true drama unfolded for many. Queen's Park Rangers and Reading found the step up too great, their relegations confirmed with significant time still remaining on the clock. The real battle was a frantic scramble above them, a fierce contest that went to the final day, pulling in Wigan, Sunderland, Newcastle, and Aston Villa, along with the newly promoted Southampton. Wigan Athletic's story was perhaps the most paradoxical of all. They were relegated from the division but simultaneously qualified for European competition by winning the FA Cup. Their continental journey was a strange footnote to a season of domestic heartbreak. Wigan Athletic entered the Europa League group stage, a championship club facing Rubin Kazan, Maribor, and Zult Weerjum. Back in England, the Champions League places were settled more predictably, with Manchester United, Manchester City, Chelsea, and Arsenal securing their spots. Tottenham Hotspur were left just outside, finishing a single point behind their North London rivals. Below them, Everton solidified their status as a consistent threat, finishing sixth. And Swansea City, in just their second year, finished a remarkable ninth and lifted the League Cup, booking their own place in the Europa League third qualifying round. The season belonged to individuals as much as teams. Robin van Persie justified his move by becoming the top goal scorer, the final piece in Ferguson's championship puzzle. Luis Suarez produced moments of sheer genius, including his now customary demolition of Norwich City. Elsewhere, new heroes emerged. Christian Benteke at Aston Villa and Michu at Swansea City became iconic figures, scoring 19 and 18 goals respectively and defining their club's seasons. Gareth Bale produced a phenomenal year for Tottenham, an individual campaign of such brilliance that it seemed he might drag them into the top four by himself. For his efforts, Ferguson was named Manager of the Year one last time, while Gareth Bale swept the individual honors, named both Player of the Year and Young Player of the Year. From the certainty of that final Ferguson title, the league plunged into a year of breathtaking chaos. The 2013-14 season ignited an incredible title race between Liverpool, Manchester City, and Chelsea, a spectacle of attacking football and high drama. At the heart of Liverpool's surge were Luis Suarez and their captain, Steven Gerrard, driving the team forward with relentless ambition. With only 3 games left to play, Liverpool stood 5 points clear at the top of the table. Even with Manchester City holding 2 games in hand, winning them both would still leave City 3 points adrift. The title felt like it was Liverpool's to lose. Then came the match against Chelsea at Anfield, a moment now etched into football history. In the team huddle before a previous game, Steven Gerrard had implored his teammates, telling them, "We must not let this slip." The phrase became an unintended, cruel prophecy. Just before halftime, a simple pass rolled towards him at the halfway line. His slip on the turf allowed Demba Ba to run through unchallenged and score for Chelsea. The psychological blow was immense. It was followed by a trip to Crystal Palace, where Liverpool, leading 3-0 and chasing goals to improve their goal difference, collapsed to a 3-3 draw. The league was effectively surrendered in those 2 games. Manchester City capitalized, beating West Ham United 2-0 on the final day to claim the title. The individual numbers from that season were staggering. Luis Suarez scored 31 goals, with his partner Daniel Sturridge adding 21 in a phenomenal attacking display. For the champions Manchester City, Yaya Touré produced one of the great midfield campaigns, scoring 20 goals and finishing third in the scoring charts despite not being a forward. Other notable attacking talents made their mark, including Romelu Lukaku at Everton, Jay Rodriguez at Southampton, and Wilfried Boney, who hit 16 goals for Swansea. They were joined by the newly promoted Cardiff City, returning for the first time in 51 years, alongside Hull City and Crystal Palace. Cardiff City's season even saw a brief, ill-fated spell with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer as their manager. While Liverpool felt the sting of a lost title, Manchester United endured a season of historic decline. Finishing 7th, they fell outside of European competition for the first time in a generation, a direct consequence of Sir Alex Ferguson's retirement. His successor, David Moyes, oversaw a tragic year, with the club finishing 22 points behind their City rivals. In contrast, Everton thrived under new manager Roberto Martinez, finishing 5th and qualifying for the Europa League group stage, powered by Romelu Lukaku, Ross Barkley, and Seamus Coleman. Stoke City enjoyed another stable year, finishing 9th. At the bottom, the fight was lost by Cardiff City, Fulham, and Norwich City, who were all relegated. In a testament to his work turning around Crystal Palace, Tony Pulis was named manager of the season. Mauricio Pochettino also impressed, guiding Southampton to 8th with a vibrant young team featuring Adam Lallana, Luke Shaw, and Jay Rodriguez, while Sam Allardyce continued his work managing West Ham United. The following season, 2014-15, saw a return to a more familiar order. Chelsea under Jose Mourinho, won the Premier League title with a campaign of controlled dominance. They suffered only 3 losses all season, building their success on the iconic partnership of Diego Costa and Eden Hazard. Manchester City finished a distant second, with Arsenal in third and Manchester United claiming the final Champions League spot in fourth under their new manager, Louis van Gaal. Mauricio Pochettino, after his success at Southampton, had made the move to Tottenham Hotspur. Crystal Palace began the year with Neil Warnock in charge, though his tenure proved to be brief before he was sacked. Burnley found the Premier League a step too far and were relegated. The battle to avoid the final 2 spots, however, went down to the very last day, a direct contest between Hull City and Newcastle United. Hull needed a win, but could only manage a 1-1 draw with Manchester United, a result which sealed their relegation. Newcastle United secured their safety with a 2-0 win against West Ham, a victory made unforgettable by an emotional goal from Janaz Gutierrez, who had returned to football after surviving cancer. In a bizarre final day fixture, Stoke City dismantled Liverpool 6-1 in what was Steven Gerrard's final game for the club. Yet the most astonishing story of the season was one of survival. Leicester City achieved one of the greatest escapes ever seen, avoiding relegation after being rock bottom at Christmas. Having won only 4 times all year, they summoned an incredible resurgence, winning 7 of their last 9 games. This improbable run saw them finish in 14th place, a full 6 points clear of the drop zone. Elsewhere, Southampton, Swansea and Stoke all had strong seasons. Southampton, now managed by Ronald Koeman, finished 7th to qualify for the Europa League, with striker Graziano Pelle proving a notable addition. Charlie Austin of Queen's Park Rangers also impressed, scoring 18 goals despite his team's struggles, while Seto Berahino netted 14 for West Bromwich Albion. The Golden Boot was won by Sergio Aguero, who scored 26 goals for Manchester City. Hot on his heels was a new English star, as Harry Kane announced his arrival with 21 goals. Jose Mourinho was recognized as the Manager of the Year for Chelsea's title win. His key player, Eden Hazard, was named Player of the Year, while Harry Kane was deservedly named Young Player of the Year. A notable inclusion in the Team of the Year was Southampton's left-back Ryan Bertrand, a testament to his and his club's excellent campaign. What followed that season of survival remains the single most unprecedented achievement in Premier League history. Leicester City, after their great escape, won the 2015-16 Premier League title. It is widely considered the greatest feat the league has ever witnessed. The season began with change, as Nigel Pearson, the architect of their survival, departed the club. Claudio Ranieri was appointed in his place, a move met with widespread skepticism. But with new signings, Riyad Mahrez and N'Golo Kanté joining the talismanic Jamie Vardy, an astonishingly effective core was formed. Leicester City won the Premier League for the first time in their 142-year history. They sealed the title with 2 games still remaining after their closest challengers, Tottenham, failed to beat Chelsea. Eden Hazard scored the crucial equalizing goal in a fiery match dubbed the Battle of the Bridge, a moment that officially crowned the unlikeliest of champions. The victory, achieved against odds of 5,000 to 1, fundamentally altered how betting odds are perceived in sport. Along the way, Jamie Vardy broke Ruud van Nistelrooy's long-standing record by scoring in 11 consecutive Premier League games. The league that year was joined by Bournemouth, in the top flight for the first time in their history, alongside Watford and Norwich City. At the other end of the table, Aston Villa were relegated in disastrous fashion, finishing with just 17 points and 27 goals scored, marking their first relegation since 1987. They went down alongside Newcastle United. The season was also defined by turmoil at the established giants. Jose Mourinho was sacked by Chelsea at Christmas, with Guus Hiddink taking over as an interim manager. At Liverpool, Brendan Rodgers was dismissed early in the season, paving the way for the appointment of Jurgen Klopp. Chelsea, the defending champions, collapsed spectacularly, finishing in 10th place, the lowest ever finish for a reigning Premier League title holder. Their poor performance was widely attributed to internal strife, with players allegedly refusing to play for Jose Mourinho. The decline was personified by Eden Hazard, who failed to score a single goal until April. Manchester City were also in a state of transition, with the season played out under the knowledge that Pep Guardiola would be replacing Manuel Pellegrini in the summer. This left the title race largely as a two-horse affair between Leicester and Tottenham. Ultimately, Spurs' challenge faded at the end, and they finished third, slipping below Arsenal yet again after a run of poor form. Southampton had another strong year, finishing sixth under Ronald Koeman. Watford's return to the top flight was powered by Odion Ighalo, who scored 15 goals, and his strike partner Troy Deeney. The veteran Jermaine Defoe also hit 15 goals to help keep Sunderland in the league. Romelu Lukaku continued to impress for Everton, scoring 18 goals. The top scorer was Harry Kane, who claimed the Golden Boot with 25 goals. Sergio Aguero and the history-making Jamie Vardy were just behind, with 24 goals each. Claudio Ranieri was the clear choice for Manager of the Year. Jamie Vardy's incredible season was recognized as he was named Player of the Year. Tottenham's Dele Alli was named Young Player of the Year, while Dimitri Payet lit up the league with his flair for West Ham, helping them to qualify for Europe. Late 2010s, Guardiola's dominance and VAR introduction, 2016-2020, and so the aftershock of that fairytale season gave way to a recalibration, a return to a more familiar order. Leicester City, the team that had shocked the world, found a quiet mid-table existence, finishing a comfortable 12th, their survival never truly in doubt. The crown they had worn so unexpectedly passed to a London club, as Chelsea surged from a 10th place finish the year before to claim the Premier League title. Their restoration was orchestrated by a new force on the touchline, the passionate Italian manager Antonio Conte, whose tactical discipline remade the team in his image. The league itself was undergoing a transformation, shedding its old skin for a complete rebrand, introducing the now iconic purple lion and a vibrant zigzag motif that would define its visual identity for years to come. Chelsea did not just win, they commanded the season. Under Conte, they led the league for most of the year, securing the title with 2 full games left to play, a testament to their consistency. The familiar figures of Diego Costa and Eden Hazard were once again instrumental to their success, finding their best form under the new system. Yet they were not without a challenger. Tottenham Hotspur mounted a formidable campaign, finishing second and losing only 4 times all season. You could see a project reaching its zenith, with young talents like Christian Eriksen and Moussa Dembele controlling the midfield, while Harry Kane and Dele Alli provided a lethal attacking partnership, a team maturing together into a genuine force. Further down the table, Manchester City began a new era under manager Pep Guardiola, but their third-place finish felt transitional, a year of learning and adaptation that was widely seen as a disappointment given the high expectations. They were edged out by a resurgent Liverpool, who claimed 4th place and the final Champions League spot by a single point over Arsenal. Manchester United, meanwhile, finished a distant 6th. They found an alternative route back to Europe's elite competition, not through league position, but by winning the Europa League. That victory salvaged a domestic campaign that never truly caught fire under their own new manager, Jose Mourinho. The season also saw smaller clubs carve out their own successes. Bournemouth, managed by the promising Eddie Howe, secured a top-half finish in 9th place, driven by a potent attacking duo of Josh King and Callum Wilson. They were joined in the top flight by 3 promoted clubs, Burnley, Middlesbrough, and Hull City. Both Burnley and Hull City represented bounce-back stories, having returned to the Premier League immediately after being relegated. For Burnley, this season would prove historic. They survived relegation for the first time in their Premier League history, a foundation for future stability. The same could not be said for the others. The league floor fell out from under Sunderland, who endured a disastrous season that saw them relegated having finished 16 points adrift of safety. Their collapse followed a tumultuous period under the management of both Sam Allardyce and David Moyes. Middlesbrough, despite making ambitious signings like goalkeeper Victor Valdez and striker Alvaro Negredo, also failed to stay up. They were joined in their return to the second tier by Hull City, completing the trio of relegated teams. Individually, the race for the Golden Boot was fiercely contested. Alexis Sanchez of Arsenal produced a brilliant campaign, scoring 24 goals, while Everton's Romelu Lukaku went one better with 25. But both were ultimately surpassed by Tottenham's Harry Kane, who claimed the award with a remarkable 29 goals in just 30 appearances. Elsewhere, Manchester United made waves in the transfer market, with Mourinho orchestrating the return of Paul Pogba from Juventus for a world record fee, while veteran striker Zlatan Ibrahimovic provided a unique and powerful presence up front. Players like Josh King for Bournemouth and Christian Benteke for Crystal Palace also had notable goal-scoring seasons. At the season's end, Antonio Conte was rightly recognized for his transformative impact at Chelsea, being named Manager of the Year. It was his player, N'Golo Kanté, who took home the Player of the Year award, a second consecutive title with a second club. For the second season in a row, the Young Player of the Year award went to Dele Alli, confirming his status as one of England's brightest talents. And at Liverpool, Jurgen Klopp was quietly assembling the pieces of a formidable team, securing Champions League qualification with the electrifying trio of Sadio Mané, Roberto Firmino, and Philippe Coutinho beginning to show their devastating potential. What followed was not just a season, but a demolition. Manchester City, having spent a year adapting to their manager's methods, unleashed a year of almost flawless football. They won the 2017-18 Premier League title with a record 100 points, a feat that earned them the permanent nickname, the Centurions. They lost only twice all season, scored an astonishing 106 goals, and finished with a plus 79 goal difference, statistics that shattered previous benchmarks. Their team was a symphony of attacking talent, featuring Sergio Aguero, Raheem Sterling, and Leroy Sané, all anchored by the leadership of Vincent Kompany and the artistry of David Silva. The result was a procession, a title race that was over long before the final day. Manchester United finished as distant runners-up. Under Jose Mourinho, they accumulated a respectable point total, but were simply unable to compete with the historic pace set by their city rivals. Tottenham Hotspur remained consistent, finishing third, while Liverpool continued their upward trajectory under Klopp, once again qualifying for the Champions League in fourth place. But the true surprise of the season emerged from an unexpected place. Burnley, against all odds, finished seventh. That incredible achievement secured them qualification for Europa League football, a European adventure born from defensive solidity and collective spirit. The league welcomed three new clubs that season: Newcastle United, Brighton and Hove Albion for their first time in the Premier League, and Huddersfield Town making their first appearance in the top flight in decades. Against the typical script, all three survived. Huddersfield Town, led by manager David Wagner, defied expectations to finish 16th, a crucial 4 points above the drop zone. Brighton and Newcastle also secured their top-flight status, marking the first time all three promoted sides stayed up since the 2011-12 season. This made the relegation battle a tense affair fought between the established clubs. It went down to the penultimate game, a high-stakes clash involving Southampton and Swansea City, with Stoke City also mired in the fight. In the end, West Bromwich Albion were the first to fall, finishing at the bottom by 5 points. The decisive moment for survival came when Manolo Gabbiadini scored for Southampton against Swansea, a goal that effectively secured their safety and condemned the Welsh club. That season, the league was lit up by a new star. Mohamed Salah, in his first year back in England with Liverpool, broke the record for the most goals in a 38-game Premier League season, scoring an incredible 32 times. Harry Kane continued his own prolific form with 30 goals, and Sergio Aguero contributed 21 to Manchester City's cause. Even at Leicester, Jamie Vardy proved his quality was no fluke, netting 20 goals, while at Brighton, the veteran Glenn Murray scored 12 crucial goals for their survival. Unsurprisingly, Pep Guardiola was named Manager of the Year for orchestrating City's record-breaking campaign. Mohamed Salah's phenomenal debut season earned him the Player of the Year award, while City's electrifying winger Leroy Sané was named Young Player of the Year. Through all this, Arsene Wenger was still the manager of Arsenal, though his long, transformative era was drawing to a close. His final home game at the Emirates was a fitting send-off, a comprehensive 5-0 victory against Burnley, a moment of celebration for a tenure that had redefined the club. Manchester City's dominance was absolute, breaking a string of records including the most consecutive league wins with 18, and equaling the most consecutive away wins with 11, all culminating in that perfect 100 points and the highest goal difference in Premier League history. Then came the duel. The 2018-19 season distilled the league into a two-horse race of unprecedented quality, a relentless battle between Manchester City and Liverpool that went down to the final minutes of the final day. Both teams were utterly dominant, winning almost all of their games and setting a pace that left the rest of the league far behind. Liverpool were nearly perfect, finishing with 97 points, a total that would have won them the title in almost any other season in history. They lost only one solitary game all year, a defeat that would prove decisive. That loss came against Manchester City, a tense 2-1 result at the Etihad, a game forever remembered for a breathtaking goal-line clearance by John Stones that denied Liverpool a crucial point by mere millimeters. A 0-0 draw against City rivals Everton also contributed to the slender margin that ultimately cost Liverpool the title. The relentless pressure held until the very end. On the final day, Manchester City traveled to Brighton and, despite a brief scare, won 4-1 to secure back-to-back championships by a single point. Below them, the league welcomed Wolverhampton Wanderers, Cardiff City and Fulham. Wolves were the season's surprise package, finishing 7th in their first season back to qualify for European football under manager Nuno Espirito Santo, built around talented players like Raul Jimenez and Ruben Neves. But for the other two promoted clubs, the stay was brief. Both Cardiff City and Fulham were relegated straight back to the Championship. Cardiff's fate was sealed on the second-to-last game of the year. Huddersfield Town suffered a severe case of second-season syndrome, their relegation confirmed as early as March after a campaign that yielded only 3 wins and 16 points. The remaining Champions League places were secured by Chelsea and Tottenham. Arsenal, under their new manager, Unai Emery, who had replaced Arsene Wenger, finished just 1 point behind their North London rivals. At Manchester United, a poor run of form led to Jose Mourinho being sacked, with club legend Ole Gunnar Solskjaer taking over as caretaker and then permanent manager. The Golden Boot was, for the first time in years, shared. 3 players finished level: Arsenal's Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang and Liverpool's Sadio Mané and Mohamed Salah, each with 22 goals. Other notable players included the aforementioned Raul Jimenez at Wolves, Paul Pogba at Manchester United, and Gylfi Sigurdsson at Everton. For the second year running, Pep Guardiola was named Manager of the Year. The Player of the Year award went to Liverpool's colossal defender, Virgil van Dijk, in recognition of his transformative effect on their backline. Raheem Sterling of Manchester City was named Young Player of the Year. The PFA Team of the Year reflected the league's two-tiered nature, composed almost entirely of Liverpool and Manchester City players, with Paul Pogba the only exception. Liverpool's domestic heartbreak was, however, soothed by European glory. They won the Champions League, beating Tottenham Hotspur 2-0 in the final in Madrid, a powerful statement of their quality on the continental stage. But the season was also marked by profound tragedy. A helicopter crash outside the King Power Stadium claimed the life of Vijay Srivaddhanaprabha, Leicester City's beloved owner, an event that sent shockwaves of grief through the entire football community. Another tragedy struck when Emiliano Sala, a striker who had just signed for Cardiff City, died in a plane crash while traveling to his new club, a devastating loss before his Premier League story could even begin. And through it all, Liverpool's incredible league campaign, though it ended in second place, was a near-perfect run, falling just short of an unbeaten season but setting the stage for what was to come. Early 2020s, pandemic, VAR, and Liverpool's title, 2019-2022, and then the lines on the screen arrived, red and blue, drawing an invisible geometry over every decisive moment. The 2019-20 season introduced the video assistant referee to the Premier League, and with it came a new kind of tension, a collective breath held not just for the whistle, but for the silent review that followed. It was a change that promised precision, but often delivered only controversy, altering the very rhythm of the game you thought you knew. That fundamental shift was soon dwarfed by another. On March 13, 2020, the league fell silent, a season halted for over 3 months by the global pandemic. When football returned on June 17, it was to a world transformed. Games unfolded in echoing, empty stadiums, the raw sounds of the pitch suddenly audible, while on the kits, teams wore badges honoring the National Health Service and carried the message of the Black Lives Matter campaign onto a global stage. Amid this strange new quiet, one team made a sound that had been 30 years in the coming. Liverpool finally ended their long wait, claiming their first Premier League title, a 19th English League crown overall. They did not just win. They dominated, securing the title with a record 7 games still to play, and at one point holding a staggering 25-point lead over their rivals. Their fortress at Anfield became historic, as they strung together 24 consecutive home victories, another new benchmark. While Liverpool ran away with the league, the race behind them was a frantic scramble. Manchester United and Chelsea ultimately found the consistency to claim the final top 4 positions. For Leicester City, it was a season of promise that ended in heartbreak. They had lived inside the Champions League places for most of the campaign, playing with a flair that felt sustainable, only for a collapse in form during the final games to see them fall away at the last hurdle. The individual brilliance of their striker, Jamie Vardy, was a constant, however, as he returned to his very best to score 23 goals and win the Golden Boot. Just behind him, Danny Ings produced a remarkable 22-goal season for Southampton, a personal revival story. The architecture of this new era was recognized, with Liverpool's Trent Alexander-Arnold named Young Player of the Year, and Manchester City's creative engine, Kevin De Bruyne, honored as Player of the Year. The ultimate managerial prize, however, could only go to one person. Jurgen Klopp was named Manager of the Year. Down at the bottom, the story was one of survival. 3 clubs had arrived with fresh hopes: Norwich City, Sheffield United back after a 12-year absence, and Aston Villa returning after 3 seasons away. Norwich City found the step up too great, relegated convincingly, without mounting a significant challenge. By contrast, Sheffield United were the surprise package of the year, their innovative tactical system carrying them to an incredible 9th-place finish. The final day relegation battle became a tense 3-way affair between Watford, Bournemouth, and Aston Villa, with just a single point separating the trio. Aston Villa ground out a 1-1 draw against West Ham, securing their survival by that solitary point. It was a result that sealed the fate of the others. Watford were relegated after losing 3-2 away to Arsenal. Wolves continued to build on their own impressive project, finishing 7th, while a typically resilient Burnley secured 10th. The following season brought more unpredictability, with historic scorelines that felt like glitches in the Matrix. You saw Aston Villa dismantle the champions Liverpool 7-2, and Manchester United put 9 goals past Southampton. But by the end of the 2020-21 campaign, the table looked more familiar at the bottom, with Fulham, West Bromwich Albion, and the previous year's darlings, Sheffield United, all going down. This set the stage for another classic 2-horse race, a rivalry that had come to define the era. The 2021-22 season began to echo the tense battle of 2018-19 between Manchester City and Liverpool. At one point, City had built a formidable 13-point lead, and the title race looked all but over. Yet Liverpool responded with a relentless charge. winning 10 consecutive games to slice that lead down to a single point before their crucial meeting at the Etihad on April 10th. That match, a pulsating showcase of two of the world's greatest sides, ended in a 2-2 draw, leaving the margin razor thin. The title would be decided on the final day. Liverpool were at home to Wolves. Manchester City were at home to an Aston Villa side managed by Liverpool legend Steven Gerrard. Liverpool did their job, winning their match against Wolves. For 75 minutes at the Etihad, the impossible seemed to be happening. Aston Villa took a stunning 2-0 lead, with goals from Matty Cash and former Liverpool star Philippe Coutinho. The title was slipping from City's grasp. Then, in a dizzying 5-minute spell, Manchester City produced one of the most incredible comebacks in the history of the competition. They scored 3 goals, turning the game and the title race on its head to win the league. For the second time in 4 seasons, Liverpool had been denied by a single point. The fight for the top 4 was just as dramatic, a direct duel between North London rivals Tottenham Hotspur and Arsenal. Arsenal held the advantage, but a late-season loss to Tottenham in the derby, followed by a damaging defeat to Newcastle, opened the door. Tottenham Hotspur seized their chance, claiming the 4th and final Champions League spot. For Manchester United, it was a season of upheaval. Cristiano Ronaldo's return yielded a respectable 18 goals, but the team faltered, finishing 6th. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer departed in November, with Ralf Rangnick taking over as an interim solution. Meanwhile, West Ham United continued their ascent, finishing 7th to qualify for the Europa Conference League. The relegation scrap also went to the wire. Norwich City and Watford were relegated comfortably, their poor performances making an early exit inevitable. Norwich ended with the worst goal difference seen since Derby County in the 2007-8 season. Everton, a club that seemed to be in freefall, engineered a miraculous escape. A fantastic run of late-season results, including home wins against Chelsea and Manchester United, culminated in a comeback victory against Crystal Palace that secured their safety before the final day. This left Burnley and Leeds United facing a direct shootout. They entered the final day level on 35 points, with Burnley's superior goal difference giving them the edge. Burnley needed to beat Newcastle at home. Leeds needed to better their result away at Brentford. It was Leeds who would survive. Burnley lost 2-1 at home to Newcastle, a result that brought an end to their 6-year stay in the top flight and came after the surprise sacking of longtime manager Sean Dyche. At Brentford, Leeds went 1 goal up before being pegged back, but a dramatic late winner from Jack Harrison sparked wild celebrations and confirmed their survival. The individual awards saw Mohamed Salah and son Heung-min share the Golden Boot. For the second consecutive year, Phil Foden was named Young Player of the Year, while Kevin De Bruyne was again voted Player of the Year. In a move that surprised many, given the final league table, it was Jurgen Klopp who was once again named Manager of the Year, a testament to the incredible challenge his team had mounted, pushing a historic City side to the very last minute of the very last day. Current season and future outlook, 2022-2025. And so the metallic gleam of the trophy reflects a familiar blue, the sky-colored ribbons of Manchester City already seeming a foregone conclusion for the 2022-2023 campaign. Their rhythm became a drumbeat for the entire league, a relentless pace set by a squad engineered for sustained excellence, turning a marathon into a sprint they alone seemed equipped to finish. The prediction was less a bold claim and more an observation of a powerful force moving toward its logical end, a dynasty solidifying its foundations with yet another monument. This time, however, an echo from the past made the procession feel like a genuine race. Arsenal returned not as a contender for European places, but as a challenger for the throne itself, their young squad playing with a vibrancy that captured the imagination, and for many months, the top spot. Their fight was not just against City but against their own recent history, a reclamation of an identity that had long felt dormant. For the first time in years, the title narrative had a second protagonist, a credible threat that made the inevitable feel, for a while, beautifully uncertain. Far below this struggle for silverware, a different kind of battle raged with an inverse intensity, where survival was the only prize. At the very bottom, the fate of Southampton appeared sealed long before the final whistle, their season a slow, painful slide toward the drop. You could almost see the energy drain from their campaign week by week, the gap to safety widening into a chasm that eventually became impossible to cross. Theirs was a quiet relegation, a team accepting its destiny while the chaos unfolded just above them. That chaos ensnared giants, clubs with deep roots and decorated histories now finding themselves tangled in the weeds of a relegation scrap. Everton, a club that has spent more than 100 years in the top flight, stared into the abyss. Leeds United, with their ferocious support, and Leicester City, the fairy tale champions of 2016, were all pulled into the vortex. It was a stark reminder that legacy offers no immunity in this league. The threat of falling is a great equalizer, reducing famous old stadiums to venues of desperate, nerve-shredding anxiety. Amid this tension at the bottom, a new yet familiar face appeared, a splash of color from a bygone era. Nottingham Forest was back in the Premier League, their return a story of its own after more than 2 decades in the wilderness. Having won the European Cup twice, their history is richer than most, yet they entered the modern era as underdogs, a club rediscovering its footing on the grandest stage. Their presence was a living link to a different age of football, a welcome disruption to the established order. The most significant disruption, however, was happening further up the table, where the traditional fight for the top 4 was gate-crashed by an ascendant power. The established Champions League hopefuls found their exclusive club had a new applicant, one with ambitions that matched its newfound resources. Newcastle United, for so long a sleeping giant, was now wide awake, their black and white stripes becoming a fixture in the upper echelons of the league. This was not a fleeting visit or a lucky run of form. It was the announcement of a new reality. Newcastle United all but confirmed their spot among Europe's elite, transforming their home ground into a fortress and their team into a relentlessly effective unit. The Champions League anthem was destined to ring out over Tyneside once more, signaling the end of one era and the confirmed, emphatic arrival of another, leaving the rest of the league to wonder not if they could be stopped, but who would be next to rise or fall in their wake. While St. James Park reverberated with the sounds of success, the opposite end of the table echoed with the hushed, desperate prayers of survival. If Newcastle's ascent represented a seismic shift in the league's power structure, the chaotic, desperate scramble at the bottom was its jarring aftershock. At the heart of this vortex of anxiety was Southampton, a club whose long-standing reputation for shrewd development and punching above its weight had finally crumbled. The 2022-23 season saw the Saints bereft of identity, cycling through managers and tactical setups with a grim inevitability. Their performances often lacked the fight required for a relegation scrap, and by the season's closing stages, their fate seemed not a matter of if, but when. Their impending drop to the championship served as a cautionary tale of how quickly a club's well-earned Premier League status can evaporate without clear direction and investment. Yet Southampton were not alone in their misery. In what became one of the most dramatic and unpredictable relegation battles in recent memory, a cohort of established clubs found themselves dragged into the mire. The sight of Everton, a founding member of the Premier League who had never been relegated from it, fighting for their top-flight lives for a second consecutive season, sent shivers down the spine of their fiercely loyal fan base. Goodison Park became a cauldron of nervous energy, where every point felt monumental. Alongside them were Leeds United, whose return to the Premier League under Marcelo Bielsa had been a breath of fresh air. That high-octane energy had dissipated, replaced by a defensive frailty that saw them leak goals at an alarming rate, undoing any good work at the other end of the pitch. Perhaps most shockingly of all, Leicester City, the fairy tale champions of 2016, were in the thick of the fight. The architects of one of sport's greatest upsets were now facing the ignominy of relegation, a stark reminder of the league's unforgiving nature. The decline of these 3 giants, each with a rich history and substantial support, underscored the season's brutal narrative. Past glories offered no protection from present failures. In stark contrast to these struggling mainstays was the story of Nottingham Forest. Returning to the Premier League after a 23-year absence, their campaign began with a bold, almost reckless summer of spending that brought in an entire squad of new players. Initially, the approach appeared doomed to fail, as the team struggled for cohesion and spent much of the first half of the season rooted in the relegation zone. But under the steady guidance of Steve Cooper, Forest slowly began to gel. They turned the city ground into a formidable fortress, securing crucial home wins against top opposition and building a spirit of defiance that powered their improbable push for survival. Their journey was a testament to resilience, proving that while money was a key factor, a unified dressing room and a passionate home crowd could still forge a path to safety. As the season drew to its conclusion, the Premier League's dual narratives were set in stone. At the pinnacle, Manchester City's relentless machine was on course to secure another title, holding off a valiant but ultimately flagging challenge from a rejuvenated Arsenal. Below them, Newcastle United's rise had shattered the old order of the top four. And at the bottom, a desperate fight for survival, featuring some of England's most storied clubs, provided a weekly spectacle of tension and heartbreak. The 2022-23 season would be remembered not just for the champions it crowned, but for the giants it threatened to fell and the new power it had unequivocally enthroned.